Brothers. Now, it's a Broadway theater, and that's where Sting's new show is. It's called The Last Ship. On your left, mural, that's called Four Seasons by Marc Chagall. The building on your left, you look straight up, it's kind of curvy up there. And now it's a Chase, because Chase bought everything in the world, but it used to be the First National Bank. This is Madison Street we're passing, about 13 blocks west. You can't see it, but that's where the United Center is. That's where the Bulls play basketball, our Chicago Blackhawks. Tommy Hawk? Oh, how about that? Speaking of Blackhawks. Well, anyway, that's where the Blackhawks play. And we have a lot of concerts. I just want to bring this up. There's an outdoor concert on the beach tomorrow night at Montrose Beach, and that's the Doobie Brothers in Boston are playing. It's going to be out on the beach. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to ride my bike there. I can't wait. I've been waiting all summer, so it better not rain. It's not supposed to rain tomorrow. Okay, straight ahead, and on your left, you see it looks like a rusty skyscraper that's built with, it's called in-clear steel. It looks like it's rusty, but it just never rusts. In front of, well, this is called the Daly Center. The statue in front in the plaza, that is the Picasso given to the city of Chicago by the artist Picasso. If you saw the Blues Brothers, that's where they crashed their cop cars in the windows over there, and that building with the columns behind it. That's where they went to go pay the bill for the orphanage. That's where the City Hall and the county building are. Okay, we're crossing State Street, and on your left, that's Burger Building, which needs a power wash, I would say. That's Marshall Field, now it's Macy's. That clock, that's a famous clock. If you remember the artist Norman Rockwell, he used to paint covers of the Saturday Evening Post, and he painted a famous cover using the clock at Marshall Field. So Marshall Field has been in this spot since 1865. It burned down, they rebuilt it, it burned down, they rebuilt it, and there's three buildings. If you look up, you can see the different buildings. There's three all put together that make up the whole city block. It's a really big store. It's been here forever, very famous. And then a few years ago, Macy's bought it. And they had the nerve to change their name. And now Macy's doesn't even own Macy's. Macy's is owned by a different company now. And the building that we were next to, that was the oldest one. That was built by Daniel Burnham in 1892. And the arrows were built in the 1890s, as was this building on your left. Please go in this building if you can. It has two different sections. In both sections, on the second floor, they have two beautiful Tiffany domes. They're gorgeous. Straight ahead, the Pritzker Pavilion. That's where there will be a concert tonight. It's classical. The Grant Park Symphony Orchestra plays there tonight at 6:30, tomorrow night at 7:30. And to your right, where all these looks like tents and awnings are, that's the Park Grill. In the winter, there would be there'd be an ice skating rink there. But above that, that's where really, Honda. Okay, that's where the Bean is, the Pritzker Pavilion, and beyond that, that's where the Crown Fountain is, and the Lilly Garden. So about 15 years ago, this would have been ugly train tracks right here. It took a while for the park to be built because it just got bigger. The ideas just kept getting bigger and bigger and better and better. So this is the 10th year anniversary of the park. So what they do, the train tracks are underground. They put a parking garage on top of the train tracks. And then this is a rooftop garden. So it's like a 25-acre rooftop garden. It's gorgeous. It's one of the most visited tourist attractions. I'll be here tomorrow. Tomorrow morning they have exercise classes. You won't see me, but there's one at Tai Chi at 7 o'clock and one at 8, and I think Zumba at 10. But there's an exercise class. straight ahead, you see the green building with the gold leaf on top. That is now the Hard Rock Hotel. Again, it was one of Daniel Burnham's buildings. They almost tore it down, and the city bought it and renovated it, and now it's the Hard Rock. She gave Chicago like 90,000 volumes of her personal library because she wanted to help people. Little did she know we didn't even have a library. Joke's on her. So she started our Chicago library. Okay, the Harris Theater over there. It looks like a little theater. That's because it's all underground. It's a, you know, we have lots of shows over here, dance company. You can rent bikes, segways right over here. So that picture pavilion that we're leaving right now, that's the thing that looks like a smashed beer can over there. It's designed by Frank Gehry. It's great acoustics. Tonight at 6:30 there'll be a classical concert. The Grant Park Symphony is playing there. And tomorrow night at 7:30 it's playing there. That construction is going to be the Maggie Daley Park. Maggie Daley was the mayor's wife, but she died a few years ago. She was very beloved. But all this area is a rooftop garden. So you see those white boxes. What they're going to do, they're going to cover those boxes with dirt. So it's not as heavy as if they made a hill out of solid dirt. So that's what that's the white boxes are for. They're kind of like styrofoam. Real quick on the left, that is the Aon Center. That's the third tallest building in Chicago. Used to be covered in marble, and the marble cracked because of the winter. A big chunk fell off, and so they had to take it all off and replace it with granite. They had to throw away all the marble. Could have made me an end table. Okay, over here in front of you, this is called the Opera Building. The building on your right looks kind of wavy. You know, we're on the lakefront here. Those are all terraces. And the reason why they're kind of uneven is because the architect, her feeling was that you could go out on your terrace and then you could look up and you could talk to your neighbor. Hello, hello, hello. This is designed by a woman named Jean Gang. She's from Chicago. It's a geothermal building and also it won awards for the color of the windows. Because of our location, we get a lot of migratory birds that come through, and a lot of them get killed running into high-rises. So for some reason, this color, they see it and they don't get killed. If anybody is interested in birds, we have like bird watching sanctuaries here, but when birds, they migrate during the seasons, they will follow the Mississippi River. And then if they're coming up north, they'll stop here, or if they're coming from Canada and they're going back to south, they stop here along the lakefront because it's like about 25 miles of uninterrupted lakefront.
I was above. I wasn't.
Keep your
So
head
way
up.
in the distance on your right, maybe here. And we're going back on to Wacker Drive. It has two different levels. We're going to be on Upper Wacker now. And right here, this is where it all started. What? Somebody's spitting. Birds are spitting on you and doing stuff to you. I've never felt anything. No. Well, you know what? Yesterday, was it yesterday? It was sunny out, and it was raining. It was totally sunny out. I step out of my house. It's like, oh my God. No. So on the other side of the river where those boats are, that's where the first settlement was here in Chicago, 1770. It was a man named DeSable. He was of French and African descent. There's a big fur trading post over there, and a farm, a grain mill, barn, house. He raised animals. Very successful fur trading post. Now on the other side of the street, you can see where there's a Fannie Mae's candy. Now where Fannie Mae's candy is now, in 1800, this is where there was a fort. It was called Fort Dearborn. And I'm sure those soldiers never dreamed that in 214 years that there would be a candy store there, but that's it. It was called Fort Dearborn. It was burnt down by the Indians during the War of 1812. See, The Indians have been here for thousands of years. The French were the first Europeans to come through. But you know, I'm sorry, I got distracted on back to the fur trading post. The man who built it, his name was Gustavo. He was of French and African descent, but he married a Native American. The French would marry Native Americans, the English would not. So what happened, the French had a whole network of fur trading posts all the way down to the Mississippi River. So we're passing the Michigan Avenue Bridge that was built in 1920, and the first building to be built was across the river. That is the Wrigley Building with the giant clock tower. The building with the golden onion on top, and that kind of looks like a chimney. That is the Hotel Intercontinental. And the building with the American flag on top. That's the Chicago Tribune building. It's a major newspaper. Great. Oh boy. All right. All right. Okay, so I guess I'm going on break. 12:30 break. That stinks. Too early. This is what happens when I get back, then I still have to work for like 6 hours. I like a later break.
Hey, how's it going?
Okay, so I forget her name. She's coming up and she's going to take over for about an hour. So maybe I'll see you over there at stop 9. So this is stop 2 and stop 9's right across the street. The next stop is 3. We have seats here. That's where you can get off and get your t-shirt and also your popcorn sample. All right? Okay, so obviously, and of course, I don't even have to tell you what building we're in front of. Oh my God. About a month ago, you would have saw beautiful classic buildings. Now,
Good afternoon, folks. My name is Sarah. I'm going to be your tour guide for the next about 7 stops. Just took Julie and Judy off on break. Welcome to Chicago. My name is Sarah. Miguel is our driver, and whenever he is ready to go, we're going to be taking off towards stop number 3 at our Block 37 mall. Block 37 is going to be where you can pick up free t-shirts at our store. We're doing straight street shopping if you so choose. So we're off. Here on the right of the bus across the Chicago River, we have the Trump International Hotel and Tower, the second tallest building in Chicago, standing 1,389 feet tall. As we're moving ahead towards Wabash Avenue, this building directly in front of us is the Jewelers Building. The Jewelers Building is called that because Wabash Avenue, just directly ahead of us, used to be known as Jewelers Road. There's still a section of it that still has the Jewelers Road name between Washington Street and 3 blocks south to Adams, where there's a lot of jewelry stores. But the Jewelers Building here was the crowning building of that row. Al Capone had an office near the top of it. It was very attractive because it had a centralized elevator that you could control what was coming in and out of your building with. The elevator is no longer functioning though, even though it could carry up armored cars of the day back in the 1930s, it cannot hold the heavy trucks that we have in circulation currently. Now off to the right, these 2 corn cobs are the Marina Towers, part of the historic Marina City. These were the first buildings that people were living in here in downtown Chicago. Until very, very recently, a lot of people weren't living in the area. It was very seedy and very dirty, quite industrial. People weren't living here. So when these were built, the first one was open for moving in 1962, the second in 1964. These were the first places people lived in the downtown area. The reason it's called Marina City is because if you look behind these towers, you'll see the Hotel Chicago, and then a lower blue kind of brick building, that is the House of Blues. These were originally part of the Marina City. It was called Marina City because there were a lot of amenities available. We're talking bowling alleys, movie theaters, grocery stores, dry cleaners, restaurants, docking spots, parking spots, and of course, places for people to live. So it was a very complete deal. It was so successful at being a city that people actually didn't really move out into the area and start gentrifying. So it was quite a while until more people started moving into other buildings downtown. So right now we're on State Street. This used to be the shopping destination in Chicago before the Magnificent Mile on Michigan Avenue. I'm going to ask everybody to stay seated throughout the duration of this trip, but especially when we go under tracks. Very low hanging here at our Lake Street elevated. Here on the left we have the Chicago Theater. The Chicago Theater is one of the most iconic theaters here in the city, built in 1921 by the Rapp brothers. It looks like the Palace of Versailles inside. It used to be a movie theater. It's currently a place for concerts and comedy tours to come through. If you have any time while in town, it's definitely worth checking out the inside of it. It's absolutely gorgeous. Here on our left, as we're moving up ahead, we have a very fancy Walgreens here in the city. It has both a sushi bar and a massage parlor, but above that, on the third and fourth floor, we have the Joffrey Ballet, and you can see dancers at the bar right now. As we cross the street here and come to a stop, this is going to be our stop number 3 for the Block 37. If you do want to get off here and check out our Explore store, enter in back at the corner on Randolph Street, and it's going to be on the lower level. So you take an escalator or elevator down, or stairs. The Marshall Field and Company, this was the big department store here in Chicago until quite recently, a little less than a decade ago. It's now a Macy's. Right now we are headed down State Street. State Street is an important street here in the city. It divides our east and west addresses. Everything off to the right of the bus has a west address. Everything off to the left of the bus has an east address. We're coming up to Madison Street ahead of us, which does the same for our north and south addresses. We're currently at north addresses here. Once we cross, we'll be entering southern addresses. This street corner here in the 1890s was the busiest street corner in the entire world. People would send postcards home just to show off that they've been here. And that was because at that time period we were still rebuilding the city from our 1871 Great Fire. And there were a lot of not just department stores but also building supply stores, so it's just a very, very busy area. Across the street and on our left, this Target used to be a Carson Peary Scott department store designed by Louis Sullivan, a very prominent architect here in the Midwest. He's famous for his wrought iron work. You can see it here on the first and second floors. It is, in my opinion, probably the most beautiful example of his work. He's known for this. And it's painted green, and it's supposed to bring to mind the image of vines climbing up walls in a very stylized manner. So it's quite beautiful. And it has recently reopened 2 years ago. They had about a 4-year-long restoration project where they removed all of the wrought iron, cleaned it, and restored it and replaced and put it back up. So very, very nice building. So ahead of us here is Monroe Street, where we're going to be turning left on as we make our way to our stop number 4 at the Art Institute of Chicago. Ahead of us here and on our left, we have the Palmer House Hotel. And the Palmer House is now a Hilton, but when it was first, it's been built 3 times. This is its 3rd incarnation. This has been looking like this since 1921. When the Palmer House was first built, it was commissioned by a gentleman called Potter Palmer, who was a businessman here in Chicago. It was a wedding gift to his young wife. It was built up in 1871, and what else happened in 1871? Our Great Fire. It happened about a week after the Palmer House was completed. And even though Potter Palmer had claimed that the building was fireproof, it did in fact burn down. So he immediately, but I think it has quite a romantic story. The reason that he had built it for his wife was when he had married Bertha Palmer. She was 13 years younger than him, and he was very wealthy. I mean, Bertha Honoré did not come from a not wealthy background. She was quite well off herself, but her friends accused her of marrying him for his money, and she replied that she would marry daughter Palmer if he was but a lowly MP. So it's a bit of a tongue-in-cheek wedding gift he built her an entire hotel. So quite a nice wedding present once they rebuilt it again. And the Palmer's had a lot to do with the culture here. Bertha in particular, she would travel between the United States and Europe quite frequently. And one of the things that she liked to do was collect art. And she became friends with Mary Cassatt. Mary Cassatt was a woman who was born in Pennsylvania, but she did a lot of her work in France, and she was part of the French Impressionists. And so Bertha Palmer got hooked up with those folks, and she would buy French Impressionist paintings dozens at a time and bring them back with her. So when Bertha Palmer passed away, she donated her collection to the Art Institute of Chicago. And the Art Institute of Chicago now has the largest collection of French Impressionist paintings outside of Paris, France. And so that's a huge art museum and something definitely worth checking out while you're there. Ahead and across the street on our left, these fountains are the Crown Fountains, which are part of Millennium Park. They showcase the faces of Chicagoans on the parts that face each other, projected with LEDs. They are quite fun. They're turned on because it is quite warm out, and you can go cool off in them. It's a very popular spot for kids to play in the summer. Just be mindful of the fountains because they do shoot big spouts of water out, so you might get wet if you're not paying attention. So here on our right, this is the School of the Art Institute of Chicago's liberal arts building, the graduate studio building. On our left, we have one of the sculpture gardens for Art Institute of Chicago and the Art Institute itself. The Art Institute was the first building built here in Grant Park, and it is also the only building built for our 1893 Columbian Exposition that was not built down on the south side in Hyde Park. So when we come to a complete stop here, this is going to be our stop number 4 for the Art Institute of Chicago. If anybody would like to get off here and check out the museum or any part of Michigan Avenue, where he ended up contracting pneumonia while he was walking there, and he unfortunately passed before this opened. Here we have the Santa Fe Railway Exchange on our right, another Daniel Burnham building, this one from 1903. Home of the Chicago Architecture Foundation, as well as the Skidmore, Owings & Merrill architecture firm, where Adrian Smith is the head architect, or the major architect of that firm currently. And he designed Millennium Park and the Trump Tower and the NBC Tower here in the city. This is Grant Park here on our left. Grant Park is our largest green space in the downtown area. Not the largest one in the entire city, that's Lincoln Park. And you'll be able to check that out if you take our north side tour. It stretches about 7 miles up our coast on the north side. So we're entering into Congress Plaza. Here on our right we have the Fine Arts Building. This used to be the Studebaker Buggy House before it was dissolved into studios for artists like Frank Lloyd Wright, Paul Sandberg, Frank L. Baum, the illustrator for the Wizard of Oz. And this is the Auditorium Theater here on our right, where I mentioned the Chicago Symphony Orchestra and the Lyric Opera originally performing. That's where the Joffrey Ballet currently performs now. So just crossing Congress Parkway, which is the gateway to Lake Michigan, because it was the first major through street in Grant Park. So you could go straight through to the lake, which is about 3 blocks off to our left. Since this is Congress Plaza, we're just passing the Congress Plaza Hotel. The Congress Plaza Hotel has a lovely neon sign that is one of my favorite signs during our night tours in the evening. And it also is the first hotel in the city to have an air-conditioned ballroom, which must have been really nice because, as you can tell, it's quite humid in the city, and this is hardly as warm as it gets. It gets much hotter here. So definitely nice. That hotel was also the spot where there was the longest hotel strike in the city's history, and that lasted about a decade. But that's over and done with. They got their demands met eventually. Here we have on our right the Museum of Contemporary Photography, which is located inside of the Columbia College Chicago, which is another one of our art schools here in the city. This glass building is the Spirit Institute of Jewish Leadership and Learning. And then the rest of this block is mostly Columbia College buildings as well. And then we have the Blackstone Hotel here on our corner, formerly the Hotel for Presidents. And we're coming up to our stop number 5 in just a moment. This is the Chicago Hilton, or the Hilton Chicago here on our right. It used to be the Stevens Hotel when it was first opened. If you look at the bottoms of all these windows, you'll see wrought iron little cages with an S. That stands for Stevens. When this was first built, it was the largest hotel in the world, boasting 2,000 beds and 2,000 baths. So it was quite the big deal. It's still one of the largest hotels in the city, and it is the hotel with the most expensive suite in the city, $7,000 a night if you're looking at it. This used to be the lakefront here in our city. Before 1871, everything out to the left of the bus was underwater. How we got Grant Park was, as I mentioned before, Chicago had its Great Fire in the year of 1871. On October 8th, the fire started on the near southwest side of the city. It tore through, destroying between 2/3 and 3/4 of Chicago. We lost about 18,000 buildings. That's a lot of rubble. We're talking glass, nails, wheat, brick, mortar, and personal belongings, as well as wood. So what we did with all of that rubble is we pushed it east into the lakefront, and Grant Park, which is out to our left, is built on top of landfill from Old Chicago. So if you were to illegally dig very deep into Grant Park, you would eventually come across nails, glass, probably not wood at this point unless it was below water line, but you would find some remnants from the old city. Now off to our left, we're passing the Agora statues. This is a sculpture installation by Polish artist Magdalena Abakanowicz. It consists of 106 9-foot-tall headless cast iron figures. They're in two groups with people moving in between. It's supposed to represent community and culture, transferring ideas. And each figure is facing a slightly different direction to highlight the role of the individual in the community. This was a gift to the city of Chicago by the Polish government as well as private donors, because not only is Magdalena Abakanowicz a Polish artist, Chicago has the second largest population of any city in the world of Polish people. It used to be first, we said more Polish people in our city than Warsaw, but they are now first. So we have 80,000 Polish people here in Chicago today. Roughly. So right now, if you take a look out to the right of the bus, you're going to see a vacant lot. You might be thinking, Sarah, why do I care about a vacant lot? This vacant lot used to be a train station. This was where the Illinois Central line used to come into Chicago. And the Illinois Central line was very important to a major movement in Chicago's history. In the early 1900s, there was a group of African-American railroad workers called the Pullman Porters that would distribute a newspaper called the Daily Defender along the Illinois Central, because it rode all the way down south into New Orleans, Louisiana from Chicago. The Daily Defender was written by African-Americans and geared towards African-Americans, and it talked about how Chicago was a place where there was a better chance of work, raising a family, getting a better quality of life than you would have at the South at that time. So between our two world wars, we had a huge movement known as the Great Migration, where a lot of Southern African Americans moved into Chicago, and that was so important to Chicago's development as a city culturally, because that's where our blues influences, our jazz influences, gospel made it up this way at that time, and performers were coming up. Louis Armstrong made it up during the Great Migration. So it's just a very important part of Chicago's history. Off to the left side of the bus, you're going to see a nice view of our railroad tracks leading into downtown. But don't fret, because there will be an even better opportunity for a picture coming up as we loop around Solidarity Drive while we go through Museum. Directly up ahead of us, that is the John G. Shedd Aquarium. Ahead of us, slightly to the right, that is our Field Museum of Natural History. But first, we're going to head south and loop around behind Soldier Field, our football stadium, the big stadium here in Chicago. So Soldier Field, which is coming up ahead of us on the left, is a building that looks like it has a lovely Greek Revival style at the bottom and then a space-age UFO landing at the top. Those were built very far apart. Soldier Field was originally built as Municipal Park, or Grant Park Municipal Stadium in 1924. We wanted to attract attention for the 1928 Olympics, which we didn't end up hosting. We've yet to host an Olympics here, but that was the starting point for this stadium. In 1927, its name changed to Soldier Field to honor our veterans, initially just World War I, but now it's been rededicated to all veterans here in the United States. The addition that you see on top of it was added on in 2003, and that is coincidentally when it was no longer listed as a historic building, because it altered the before 1971, they were playing up at Wrigley Field, where the Cubs play currently at Addison and Clark. Chicago Bears are the oldest franchise in the NFL. They've won 9 national championships and 1 Super Bowl. So hopefully we will do a little better in the playoffs this year. But time will tell. But so coming up directly ahead of us, this building that has a lot of poles running around the top of it is part of McCormick Place. And McCormick Place is the largest convention center complex in the United States. And this is here in Chicago, where we have the Chicago Auto Show each February. We have the Chicago Comics and Entertainment Expo each May. We have all sorts of conventions, hair shows, dog shows. This is where they come. It's absolutely like there are 4 buildings. You definitely need a map to find your way around. And you'll see another portion of it here off to our right once we cross this stoplight. McCormick Place is another one of those buildings in the city's history where they said it wouldn't burn down, and then part of it burned down. And this is some of the rebuild here off to our right. Now off to our left here you can see the back of Soldier Field. It is the second smallest stadium in the NFL behind Oakland. It seats 61,500 people, which still sounds like a lot of people to me, but apparently not by sports stadium standards. Used to seat about 100,000, but when they did the addition, when they did the renovation and addition, they put in a lot more box seating, so it cut down on the number of seats in the stadium. Off to our right here, across that water, is Northerly Island, where there used to be Meigs Airfield. That's why you see some airport-looking stuff over there. It has since been converted into a wildlife preserve, a 12th Street beach, and Charter One Pavilion, which is a music venue over there. So when it was an airfield, it was only servicing about 1% of Chicago's population, and now it's servicing a lot broader range of people here in Chicago, which is what our former Mayor Richard M. Daleyton wanted. That's why they cut the airport. But so where we are right now, off to the right, is a more somber part of our Soldier Field tour back here, or excuse me, museum campus touring. This is the Gold Star Families Memorial Park. And this memorial is for fallen Chicago police officers. All of these trees you see here planted out to our right have been planted in honor of an officer that's fallen in the line of duty. We had to plant over 500 trees at this point in time. We don't plant this point anymore. Unfortunately, it is a risk job. But we have a beautiful town here. And it's quite a nice place to walk around. It's a very beautiful memorial. So, again, like I said, hopefully we don't have to add too many more trees to it. Some water, and that water is Burnham Harbor, named for our city planner and famed architect Daniel Burnham. And I pointed out some buildings of his earlier, particularly the Santa Fe Railway Exchange building where the Chicago Architecture Foundation is. But his most famous building is actually located in New York City, even though he's a Chicago guy, and that is the Flatiron Building in Times Square. So if you kind of can't get quite an image of some of the stuff he's done, that's a pretty recognizable one. But so, we are going to be going up Solidarity Drive by the planetarium and then by the aquarium before we make it to our stop 6. And a beautiful view of the city is going to be coming into view, and I'll tell you when that is. So, we are at Solidarity Drive. We're going to be headed up towards a building that you'll see is domed. That planetarium. Is our planetarium here in the city. And that domed building up ahead of us is the first and oldest planetarium in the Western Hemisphere. It's called the Adler Planetarium, named for Max Adler. Max Adler was at one time the president of Sears Roebuck. He married into the family, and he retired in 1928. And when he retired, he decided to lead a life of philanthropy. And his first big project was this planetarium. It opened on May 12th. Of 1930. But it's a beautiful building. It has 12 sides. The 12 sides represent the 12 signs of the zodiac, and each corner of the building has a beautiful Art Deco bronze plaque depicting a different zodiac sign. I don't know too much about astrology, I know that both my sister and myself are Capricorn, and we're incredibly hard-headed people, so there might be a little truth to it, but you never know. Horoscopes are fun sometimes. Nice and vague. But so coming up here, if you look to your right at this stop sign, you're going to be looking back out again at Northerly Island. And Northerly Island not only is being used today, but it was being used in the 1930s. This is the location of our 1933 Century Progress World's Fair. It was our 100th birthday. Chicago became a town in 1833. The fair was originally supposed to run from May 25th of 1933 to November 1st that same year. But it took place during the Great Depression, and it was such a boost to the economy that we kept it open a total of 18 months. And in that 18-month time, we had over 40 million visitors come into Chicago to see the fair. So it was a big deal out here, and it just took place right out to our right. The Adult Planetarium was part of it. The aquarium was part of it. And so we make this loop up here to head back west towards our museum campus stop. Out on the right side of the bus, we're going to have a great view of the Chicago skyline. Or excuse me, the left, once we turn. It'll be on the right. Actually, there's something, I'm sorry. So here at the planetarium, if you look to your right, you'll see Aries and Taurus on either side of the doors. And as we make our headed way down, we're going to have a great view of the skyline. Chicago has a really recognizable skyline. I think one of the reasons it has a lot of height variation because our buildings go north to south and don't go out west very far, so you get a lot all up front. So that's Navy Pier, the far out to the right. Coming down through our Magazine Mile area and Graham Park downtown, and back here to the museum, and then Huron, Ontario, and Erie. Water temperature is a little cold yet, but I have seen a lot of people swimming already. Water's about 65, 66 degrees Fahrenheit, about 18 degrees Celsius. So it gets warmer a little bit later. Now, if anybody would like to head up, so I'll tell you some more about the Field Museum here, which is ahead of us to our right. The Field Museum's been here since 1921, but we did have a natural history museum for longer. This collection used to be stored down at what's now the Museum of Science and Industry in Hyde Park. And you can access the Museum of Science and Industry with our South Tour that you can connect to. Hi, welcome aboard. But that's one of the reasons that the Field Museum looks a little bit similar to the Museum of Science and Industry. They took some of the same design ideas. But it's been here since 1921, like I was saying, and it has a wide range of exhibits. Little thing for everybody. The Americas. Hi, welcome back. They have Indigenous people of the Americas. They have fossils. They have gemstones. If you want to do some very high-end museum window shopping. A hall of mammals, a lot of stuff's here, and always special exhibits coming through. They have 2 special exhibits at any one time. Currently, we have the 1893 World's Fair exhibit, and we also have the machine inside biomechanics. I've been to the 1893 World's Fair exhibit. It's excellent. Highly recommend checking it out if you have time while you're in town. They have a lot of stuff on display that hasn't seen the light of day since 1893, so that's quite nice. But the big draw to the Field Museum is Sue the Tyrannosaurus Rex. Sue is the largest, most complete Tyrannosaurus Rex skeleton in existence ever that has been found so far. She was discovered in August of 1990 by paleontologist Susan Hendrickson in the Black Hills of South Dakota. There was a huge bidding war for museums to try and get this fossil, and the Field Museum won with a hefty price tag of nearly $50 million. Now, Susan Hendrickson made the decision to donate all of the money back to the Black Hills of South Dakota, to the native tribes, like the Sioux tribe, Lakota, as a thanks for letting her dig on their land. So that was a nice move. Out to the right, you'll see a fleeting image of a Brachiosaurus skeleton. We'll see it again as we head up Lakeshore Drive. That Brachiosaurus skeleton is the skeleton that was at the location where Sue is currently in the museum. That was their first big dinosaur fossil. That went in free when Sue was put on display. And so you can see a head here off to the right. The original display piece, they were deciding what to do with it. In 1999, they decided to move it. And in 2001, it moved officially to its new location out at O'Hare International Airport in the United Terminal. So if any folks are flying out of there, you can check that out while you head home. So we're currently on Lakeshore Drive. Lakeshore Drive was the first major north-south road here in Chicago along the lakefront, and the first north-south road running through Grant Park. It was not always this wide. There have been several expansion projects. However, the first expansion project came up in 1920 and they shot it down because things were going successful economically around the country, and also because we didn't want to have more of Lakeshore Drive cutting out Grant Park. But once the Depression was underway, we reopened that whole idea and we did our first expansion project here on Lakeshore Drive. So this green part here, Museum Campus, connects underneath Lakeshore Drive back to our left to Grant Park. And here on our right, you'll see there's a bunch of trails that kind of run around here, and they all connect into one long one called Lakefront Trail, which runs 27 miles up and down the coast of Chicago from our north side down to the south side. It's a great way to commute, especially if you want to have the lake by you the whole time. And they have a lot of public art along them. These sculptures here to our right are by an up-and-coming Chicago artist called Hebrew Brantley. These just got installed about 2 weeks ago. He's making quite a name for himself. Hip-hop artists are a fan of a lot of his work. JC's bought some of his paintings. And he's done murals around the city here. But so this concrete path running our right side is our Lakefront Trail that I was talking about. Off to our right, this is beautiful Lake Michigan. As I had said before, it is our second largest Great Lake. It runs 309 miles from north to south and 118 miles at its widest point east to west. So it's very long and narrow. It actually averages out to be about 55, 60 miles wide. It's quite narrow at the northern end of the lake. Here off to our left, this fountain that is going off is the Buckingham Fountain. The Buckingham Fountain, not named for Buckingham, England, but it is a memorial for a gentleman called Clarence Buckingham. It was built in 1927, and it is absolutely gorgeous, especially at night. It's lit up, and they have a choreographed light and music show that goes along with it. So you'll be able to check that out if you take our night tour later. You get some breeze off into that water. It's a nice place to go cool off when it's hot out because the chute, if there was no wind, it would go about 100 feet in the air, but there's so much wind in the air, there's kind of blows mist everywhere. That felt pretty nice. I'm not mad about it.
Sun beating down there.
But coming up ahead of us, we are on Lakeshore Drive currently, and we are going to be crossing Jackson Drive. The intersection of Jackson Drive and Lakeshore Drive is the historic starting point of Route 66. Route 66 is still a very popular thing to travel here in the United States. It's no longer in one continuous piece. It's been diced up and turned into other roads, but if you have a map, you'll be able to find your way pretty easily. It's very popular still, especially with motorcyclists and folks that do the Airstream caravans, those little silver sausage trailers. But it's a big, roadside America type of thing, lots of roadside attractions, a big Americana drive. I'd like to take it eventually. I don't have enough time this summer, so I'm just going to take an abbreviated drive around some roadside stuff here in the Midwest. but I am a huge sucker for the world's largest anything. Ball of twine even, I probably would go see that. But this summer I'm hitting the world's largest fiberglass muskie up in Wisconsin. I'm going to hit all those Paul Bunyan statues in Minnesota, so that's going to be my summer vacation. But so coming up ahead of us, we're going to be coming up with some construction, as well as some of our boating clubs here in Chicago. Ahead of us, coming up on the right, you're going to see both Monroe Harbor and the Chicago Yacht Club. The Chicago Yacht Club is one of our big sailing clubs, yachting clubs here in Chicago, right here on our right. And then on our left, this is a new park that's going to be an extension of Millennium Park, and this is going to be the Maggie Daley Park. Maggie Daley was the former First Lady of Chicago. She was the wife of our former Mayor Richard M. Daley. She had a huge hand in a lot of cultural things in the city, and this park for her is going to be excellent. I've heard they're putting in 2 climbing walls, one for youth, one for adults, skating rinks, playgrounds, all sorts of things. It's going to be great. So here on our right is another yacht club downtown, the Columbia Yacht Club, which is located on an old ice-breaking ship from Canada. But it has had its engine taken out, and it is not going anywhere. It's up on blocks. But that is their headquarters, which I think is pretty fitting since this is the yacht club. But this is DuSable Harbor here. And Chicago has a huge marina system, over 6,000 docking spots up and down our coast. So this is a place, if you have a boat, it would be a good place to come stay. This blue building off to our right, located out on the harbor, is the headquarters for Chicago Fire and Rescue, the Maritime Fire and Rescue here in the city. If you get in trouble on Lake Michigan, but those are the folks that are going to come and help you, if they can find you. Because Lake Michigan does get incredibly dangerous and storms come up quite unexpectedly. We're talking waves in excess of 15 feet at times, which are pretty sizable for being in an inland lake. Off to our right is the Chicago River. This green color that it is right now is naturally in color, but some folks might know that we do dye our river green at St. Patrick's Day weekend. And it's a bright Kelly green that lasts about 3 days. So this is not liquid from that, it's just that has to be algae in the water. Right now we are on Lower Blackbird Drive. If this looks familiar at all down here, that would be because it's a popular filming location for movies. There was a scene filmed down here for The Dark Knight where there's a chase between the Joker and Batman that happened a bit further west ahead of us. The Blues Brothers was filmed down here. Cooley High was the first movie filmed down here. So as we're turning here on the Columbus Drive, if you take a look out to our left, you're going to see my favorite view of downtown. That's the Chicago River in the foreground going up to the Trump Tower in the center. The Wrigley Building with the clock tower on the right, and then on the left, the Marina Towers. So it's a nice view of some of our big buildings here. If you take the night tour, you can see it lit up from the next bridge over. So definitely, you know, if anybody was wondering what my favorite view of the city was, that would be it. So we're coming up to our stop number 7 once we cross the street, which is here by the Sheraton Hotel. After stop 7 here, we're going to be moving on to stop 8 at Navy Pier. So just keep that in mind, because that's usually a very popular spot. And the Judge Mathis show, if you want to go take your neighbor's support for messing up your shrubs or something. Now this park that's here off to our right is the Ogden Plaza Park. William B. Ogden was our first mayor here in the city of Chicago. And he was a bit of a shady guy. Where we are right now used to be swamp and underwater, so it was not where you really wanted to be living. And he famously sold off a ton of land to people, guaranteeing that it would be easy to build on, it would be good to go, and then people showed up and realized that they just purchased swampland full of wild onion. And wild onion is what Chicago means. If you were to translate it from the Potawatomi language, which was the tribe that was here before it was settled by Europeans and Americans. But so If you can imagine a swamp, a stagnant Midwest swamp in the heat of summer with onions just fermenting in it, that would have been what these people purchased. But it's important information to know because the story that I'll tell you next about this neighborhood, which is called both River East and Streeterville. But the reason it's called Streeterville is because there was a gentleman who was boating in this area many years ago, over 100 years ago, and he crashed his ship into a sandbar. He contacted the landowner and said, "Hey, can I keep my boat here until it gets fixed?" The landowner said, "Of course." And then George Streeter kept his boat here for 30 years. And in that 30-year time period, there were a lot of people starting to build up the area, and so he talked around to people and said, "Hey, you know, instead of paying the city to take your garbage, you can just dump it up to and around my boat for free." And 30 years is a lot of garbage, and he ended up amassing about 100 acres of landfill around his boat, and he tried to claim it as his own land. He said, "Did belong to Chicago, did belong to Illinois." They would have to pry it out of his hands, and he had his wife pouring boiling water on trespassers, he was shooting people. They were not the most neighboring folks, but eventually he got busted. The authorities busted him for selling liquor without a license, so, you know, I think Lakeshore Drive. When we go under it, we'll be headed straight towards Navy Pier. And Navy Pier is our #1 attraction in the state and in the city for our visitors from out of town. Built in 1916, and when it was originally built, it was called Municipal Pier Number 2. I don't know what number 1 was. It was never actually built. We thought that we were going to be a big port city because before our Great Fire in 1871, we were one of the biggest port cities in the world with our grain being transported across Lake Michigan. But our business went the way of the railroads, and so we scrapped the rest of the pier project and kept this one open so Chicagoans could access the river without actually having the lake without having access to a boat. One of our biggest attractions here will be very easily visible as we round this corner, and that's our Ferris wheel. The Ferris wheel is big wheel ahead of us. Soon to be off to our right. Chicago is the home of the Ferris wheel. It was originally designed by George Ferris for 1893. The original one was 100 feet taller than this one, though. The cars were so large, they were a little bit bigger than the size of our trolleys on this company, seating 60 people inside. So quite a big Ferris wheel, 20-minute rotation. But so this here is Navy Pier on our left. Once I'll let you know when it's okay to stop. Our stop is going to be ahead as we make a turn to the left. So we're getting close. But so this is Navy Pier here on our right, and Navy Pier has the Chicago Children's Museum, an IMAX theater, a stained glass museum or convention center, a Shakespeare theater company, the Crystal Gardens Atrium, which is a beautiful place with lots of palm trees on the second floor. They have places to eat. We're talking Bubblegum Shrimp, Harry Carey's Tavern, and for any parrot heads on board, a Jimmy Buffett's Margaritaville. Okay, I was like, you. But, and also, this is a place where you can cash in your popcorn coupon for a sample here at our stop, number 8. So once we come to a stop here, you'll be able to step off and see your person. But so here we are moving up ahead. Now, on our right, we have Bill Olive Park, and this park is named after a Vietnam War hero. He sacrificed his life. He threw himself on a live grenade and saved 4 of his comrades. And he was the first African-American man to be awarded the Medal of Honor here in the United States. We're going to be going underneath Lakeshore Drive, so I'm going to ask everybody to continue to stay seated. You folks have been wonderful, but sometimes I have to wrangle people down. And if you look to your right as we're going under, you will see a spray-painted mural. Chicago commissions artists to come in and spray paint down here about every 2 or 3 years. The kind of skills other people are tagging. Chicago is the home of the spray can. We invented it in 1949, which is ironic because it is illegal to purchase spray paint in the city limits of Chicago. Last time I bought spray paint was a few years ago, and I had to go to Evansville Road, which is our nearest northern suburb, and they took a temporary picture of me, wrote down my driver's license number, and the color spray paint that I purchased. So, and they found the tag of me in Rusty Plum, so they know the hair sensitive. But I broke my delinquent ways, and I painted the kid. Coming up ahead, on the right, you're going to see a 5-story beam, $150 million hole in the ground here in this field. This was going to be the Chicago Spire. The Chicago Spire was going to be the tallest building in the Western Hemisphere. But when the ground broke in 2008, the construction later in 2008, as far as we got, they're all running down the hole. So you can see about 6 years down. But it was flowing out east into our lake, poisoning our water supply. People were getting cholera, dysentery, typhus. Not good. Here off to our right, this fountain is the Centennial Fountain, and that marks the 100th-year anniversary of how we corrected our waste problem. And how we did that was, starting in 1880, we started digging the riverbed deeper into the lake bed, and by about 1900, we reversed the flow of the Chicago River, sending all of our waste west to St. Louis, Missouri. And they weren't that happy. Sorry, anybody on board from St. Louis. Sorry. But they tried to sue us, and they ended up losing the case because Chicago countered with, well, you can't prove the waste is coming specifically from us and not from any other city along the way. They're still actually trying to get us to reverse the flow since we don't have the waste problem anymore. I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. The reason they're doing that now is because the invasive species Asian carp. Our next stop is going to be across the bridge on the other side. I'll let you know, don't worry. I got your back. So we're coming up ahead. We've got the Michigan Avenue Bridge coming up the DuSable Bridge. And this bridge that's up ahead of us here on the right that we're going to be driving on was the first double-decker drawbridge in the city of Chicago, built in 1926. It is pretty cool. I finally got to see them open it the other day while I was at work. I had never seen any of our double-decker ones open. But where we are right now, if you look around, if you look on the bridge, you see that white flag with 2 blue stripes and 4 red stars. That is our city's flag. The white stripes represent our north, south, and west side of the city. The blue stripes are waterways, the river that we're about to drive over, which usually is out to our right along the way. And then those 4 stars represent 2 tragedies and 2 triumphs. The tragedies were our 4th year war massacre of 1812, which we just passed the spot of at that bridge house. Our 1871 Great Fire, and then our 2 triumphs were 2 World's Fairs, the 1893 Columbian Exposition and the 1933 Century of Progress. So there's a lot of symbolism loaded into that little guy. But it's quite attractive. They've talked about adding more stars to it, but I don't know if that's going to actually happen. It looks quite nice as it is. But so we're going to be coming up here and pulling into our stop sign. We have the Wrigley building of the Wrigley Chewing Gum fame here on our left. And ahead of us we have the Chicago Tribune Tower where our newspaper is. And once you pull up a little bit more, you will be able to hop off here and do some
Mine or something like that. It's got close by. I'll look it up. Thank you for telling me that.
Okay, so I forget her name. She's new here. So I don't know. This is I'll just go over the buildings. This is the Wrigley building, like in chewing gum. It's terracotta at the bottom. It's a little brighter and whiter in color at the top, so the building kind of pops out at you. If you come later on the night tour, it'll be all colored in it's like depending on what season it is, it'll be bathed in a bright color. But okay, so Wrigley, they went to the north side. They brought a baseball team and a field, so they renamed it the Cub and Wrigley Field. There used to be a train track that went in between, just so you know. They ended up selling the Cubs to the team, to the company across the street. This is the Tribune. In the front of the building, you're going to see kind of like these rocks that are embedded in the front of the building. Those are pieces of world famous buildings, like the Great Pyramid, Wall of China, St. Peter's Basilica. I don't know how they got them. I asked this Tribune employee. I don't know if some reporter went in the middle of the night to move them off, but he brought them back. Purple Pig over here on the left is an up-and-coming restaurant. There's cheese, wine, and wine. Now, I think you might have seen this from a distance. This Intercontinental Hotel on your right, when you look straight up, and maybe tonight if you're at the night tour, it looks like there's a golden onion on top with a smokestack or chimney. That's that particular building. You might see it from a different angle. And that smokestack's not a smokestack. Originally it was supposed to be a dock for blimps. They were going to dock blimps up there. Okay, one of the most fascinating stores or places in Chicago just opened up a couple of months ago. It's down the street, about a block. It's called Italy. So if you ever watch cooking shows, Mario Batali, that chef with he's got the ponytail, he's got red hair, kind of big guy. He opened a new place. It's an Italian market. It's on 2 floors, but so you can shop, you know, for olive oil and pasta and things like that. But then there'll be a bread bakery, a cheese section. But you can buy a glass of wine and walk around with it as you shop. Yeah, yeah. And then on the 2nd floor there are a lot of restaurants. The cheapest thing I saw was in the bread section. You can get these big pieces of focaccia bread with tomato and mozzarella. Yes, yeah. I know. Italy. Instead of Italy. It's on Ohio Street, right around the corner from that Marriott.
It's your bag.
And I don't know if you heard this before, but the hospitals are over here. That's why you hear so many sirens, okay? Okay, so Michigan Avenue, a lot of magnificent, it's called the Magnificent Mile, so magnificently expensive stores. They're kind of mixed, but you know, you have the regular Gucci and Cartier and Tiffany and Saks Fifth Avenue, but then you'll have like theme stores, like the Nike Town that's to your right. We're in front of the Apple store, Disney store down the street. If you're here in the winter, all these trees will have white lights in them. You know, it's like a magical city at Christmas time. Now we have flowers. Early in the spring we had tulips because Amsterdam is one of our sister cities. Later there'll be palms.
What do you mean, sister city?
Oh, they have sister city agreements with other cities from all over the world, and they like exchange things. And they gave us tulip bulbs, and we give them, it's like cultural exchange, but we gave them pizza. It's like whatever.
Pizza?
Yeah, deep dish. The next street right here is Superior. There are 2 of the best deep dish places. On the right is going to be Gino's East, and on the other side is going to be Giordano's. Okay, real quick. The next stop is the water tower.
So we had a fire in 1871 because the city is built on a swamp. Our streets were made of wood, our sidewalks were made of wood, our buildings were made of wood, and it was hot and dry the whole summer. I mean, what else? But, perfect. It was like the perfect conditions for a fire. There was a big wind that night, about 40 mile per hour wind. So the wind pushed the fire across the river 2 times. So the fire crossed the river 2 times. The only 2 buildings left on the north side are these 2 right here. These were made of limestone. That's why they didn't burn. The building on your right, that's the pumping station, which still works. The night of the fire, there was a wooden roof. The roof catches on fire. It collapses and falls on top of the pumping station. So then the firemen couldn't draw out any water to fight the blaze. So the blaze just kept on going for about 16 more blocks. If you guys take the north side tour to go up by the zoo, the fire went all the way up to the zoo. The water tower, it's really there's really no purpose for it other than to hide a pipe that was sticking out of the ground that they thought was ugly. So the Amtrak has an observatory, but they just put it in a few weeks ago. It's called the tilt. What it is, you lean up against windows, and then you're holding on, and then the window will edge forward like this. So it goes in increments, just so you know, so you don't get scared the second time. So it's very basic, minimal style, but think about it, on the inside looking out, you get these great views. So if you look to your right, straight out to your right, you're going to see it's kind of like looks like a red dairy just sitting there. But what that is actually called a crib. So it takes in fresh water, and then it pumps the fresh water over to the water purification plant at Navy Pier. So we have several of these cribs along the coast of the city. Now, way in the distance on your right, that's North Avenue Beach. That's where in August we will have our air and water show. It's the beach closest to us right now. That's Upstate Beach. You see, there's a cafe over there. You can rent chase lounges. There's a place for you to change if you want to do that. A beach umbrella. There's a pedway at the end of this street, and that'll take you under Lakeshore Drive. That's the road over there. And that was built in the late 20s and early 30s. And they have just so you know, they have lifeguards over there from 11 to 7. Now, before Lakeshore Drive was built, all this land would come up to the beautiful hotel that's coming up on your left. This is the Drake Hotel. This is a very famous hotel. This is where kings and queens would stay, and there's celebrities. There's a restaurant inside called the Cape Cod. That's where Joe DiMaggio and Marilyn Monroe, when they were married, they carved their initials into the bar. If anybody's from Great Britain, or else anybody who wants to go have tea, there's a formal tea at the Drake Hotel. It's $38. They call it high tea. I know Americans think that's high tea, yeah, but that's the average price. Everybody from Great Britain, they always say that at a posh hotel, $38. Dean O'Banion's flower shop, the Irish gang. On your left, this church is the Holy Name Cathedral. This is where the Cardinal says Mass. So to the right of the doors and the window, you see a camera. About 8 feet under the camera, there's a bullet hole. I thought I'd get his attention on bullet hole. About 8 feet under the camera, so we're right behind that tree, right over here. So, what happened? Remember this gang. Northside gang runs the flower shop. Across the street, Al Capone, Southside gang decided to rent an apartment in this building. It's a different building now, but they rented an apartment in this corner. Every day, this guy from the Northside gang, he would come at the same time in the same car, the same parking spot in front of the cathedral, every single day. Okay, if you have somebody trying to kill you, I would say mix it up a little, okay? He does it, and this guy's name was Jaime Rice. Jaime Rice comes at the same time, same car, same parking spot. One day he gets out, and they just mow him down in a shower of bullets. The gun that they used to use was called a Tommy gun. It was a machine gun invented at the end of World War I. When the war ended, they had a big surplus.
But see, I think it said on like the tour things that you get, that you can get a free kids meal at the Rainforest Cafe. I think that was one of the specials, right? It is. Oh, look at somebody's birthday. Somebody's birthday. Oh, yeah. The question is, are we going to get what? Oh, we're not going to have the volcano is the ice cream that you share, and then they bring it out. You know, they shout, "Oh, really? Yeah, you never did that? No. We never did that. Ice cream thing, you know, it's a giant ice cream that the table's meant to share, and when they bring it out, you know, they all shout, "Oh, really?" And it has a sparkler in it. Oh, Eric would like that. Eric would like that. Would he? I don't know about the shouting. How much is that? It's this one. This one?
We should have told her we needed lower. No, we should have told them.
Here's our new home, sweetie.
11.
Here's our new home. Hi, sweetie.
Hey, sweetie.
This is our nice new room on the train.
See?
This is the return room.
Quite spacious.
Very studious. This is the return room.
Okay, the other rooms. This is the McCarthy. room at Eric, want to say hi?
Hey.
Hey, you're on video. He really doesn't care. Here's our neighbor's room. No one's in here yet. This is the Nelson's room. Hello.
Well, Nick looks very excited.
Yeah, he does. He's thrilled.
Hi.
They got a nice little room. All the nice little roomettes. This looks like the handicapped room. Not bad, huh? There's the shower. Pretty small. Alright, back to this room. Alright.
Nice. Hi, sweetie.
Yep. And
This is a cozy little room.
there's our view out of the roomette at Chicago Union Station.